Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening and welcome back to another episode of the Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, where we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs and dig into their highs, lows, and everything in between of their business building journey and learn about how they've been able to achieve ultimate freedom. In today's episode, episode number 19, we have another great guest with us here today, and we are going to jump right in and get this party started. We have Doug Parker. He grew up in rural East Texas and relocated to the Dallas area in the 1990s. Married at 19, Doug worked in the automotive and mobile electronics industry, where he made a name for himself as a hardworking, honest, and customer-oriented professional. However, after a major accident, he soon experienced the financial strain that occurs when faced with the growing expenses and worsening credit. He came to understand via his firsthand experience that anyone in today's society, regardless of income or education, can come to financial ruin without an understanding of our credit system and knowledge of how to make it work for them rather than against them. With resolve and attention to detail, Doug carefully investigated the ways to improve his credit score and, most importantly, educated himself on how to maintain it once regained. It is a detailed process, and Doug soon found himself helping others to improve their scores and teaching them how to maintain excellent credit. Taking that, in 1997, he founded RMCN Credit Services. Since 1997, Doug has led RMCN from its inception as a small sole proprietorship to its 2008, 2009, and 2010 selection by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing private companies in America, ranked number 408 on the Inc. 5000 list. RMCN has risen to become a major employer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it is recognized nationally as a leader in the financial services industry. So that is Doug Parker from Repair My Credit Now. Welcome, Doug. Thank you so much for being here. How is it going?
Absolutely, man. Hey, I appreciate you. I probably sent you way too much information there. Now that I hear you reading, I was like, dang. So I just sent you a little link to the normal bio. I need to shorten that down a bit for stuff like this. I mean, you told the whole story. We can just go ahead and end the show and we're good, right?
Yeah, we're good. We're all about freedom. We don't want to take up anybody else's time. We all got stuff to do. So I think that's it, guys. What do you think? So, Doug, I mean, obviously, on paper, I mean, the things you've done are pretty phenomenal, going from a sole proprietor, to, all the way scaling up to rank number 408 on the Inc. 5000 list. So, congratulations on all that success. But what was it like just starting out? And, how did you find the ability to gain credibility in an industry where it's hard to trust people in the credit world?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you, I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words there. The reality is that the business that we operate in, there's a lot of people that, frankly, are just not above board. They're doing underhanded things. They kind of scam people sometimes, and so you always got to be careful of those things. But what I really found was when I really launched the business, I did it small, part-time for about 6 years, and as I grew my business, I realized that a lot of the people out there, they just didn't deliver. They didn't do business, practical, fundamental things. And so, like, doing what you say you're going to do, don't overpromise and underdeliver, and just those real basic fundamentals. So I treated it like a real business. As you can see here in my office, I come into a real office every day. I don't operate out of my house, which, hey, there's a lot of businesses that can operate that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But from pretty much day one, when we started doing it professionally as our primary source of income, we had an office environment. We had to go to work on a normal, regular schedule. And what that did is give discipline to the environment. And in the very beginning, we didn't really have employees in the very beginning. They were contractors. And so it was a 1099 environment. There's some benefits to doing business that way. But what we found out probably within about 6 or 8 months is that because of some of the limitations of 1099, we could not have people come in at certain times of the day. We couldn't force those types of things on them. And not that we wanted to force them, but customers have certain expectations. And when you take, resources from the customer, you got to deliver. And, that was something that we changed our environment within about, like I said, about 6 to 12 months, to where everybody that was a contractor, we made them employees, and then we started having hours and benefits and things along those lines. And there's some issues with that type of thing as well. But the bottom line was we felt that was how we delivered the best customer service, environment. And that's really, your employees are very important. Your customers are very important. Everything is important. But if you're not delivering to your customers at some point, you won't have a business anymore.
Totally agree there. And I mean, we talk a lot about that on the show, and that's really one of the things I really like to hone in on is, any business, any service out there that any company is providing, I really look at it as a commodity. There's thousands of people preaching that they can fix your credit, But the difference is the experience they're going to get with you. They're going to trust you. They're going to do all those kind of things. So how did you get, one, to go from a contractor's mentality of, hey, I'm doing this for them, switching them to employees of, hey, they're actually, I'm actually working for them now. And they're not really, I'm not really kind of their boss, because when they're the contractor, they can kind of call the shots legally, and you want to make sure you're doing everything by the book. So how did you really build that culture within your staff to always put the customer first, make sure they have a great experience? Obviously, as you scale, you don't have the ability to kind of handhold everybody. So how were you able to do that so successfully?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. So frankly, by God's grace and just kind of knowing a little bit about business, it kind of worked out for me. And so we started out and we said, hey, we found that people would call in and want to talk to their consultant and they weren't there, and so we said, well, there's only so much we're willing to handle before we have to start somehow charging the consultant for that time. And then we realized, you know what? It's really better, whatever they've told them, that they are the one that's the point of contact. So we just kind of talked to everybody and said, hey, we want to offer benefits to you. We want it to be more of a larger scale environment that we can scale, and we think that that's going to be the best strategy for growth in the long run. Now, interestingly enough, anytime something changes, it goes into chaos. And as there's chaos, it's this tunnel of chaos that you go through, and out of the end of it comes back into order. But during that time, nobody likes change. And so we had a couple people that kind of fought the situation, and then as we converted them over to being an employee and put some different rules in place, a couple of them quit. That's fine, no problem. And then they went in and said that they should have been employees all along, which is what they were griping about. So it's weird how those things happen. And that's it. Luckily, we had followed all the procedures. There's a form with the IRS called an SS8 that they had filed. But if you ever want to know the difference between what's a contractor and what's an employee, there's a list of 20 questions that you can ask. And if the people that you think are contractors are doing any of one of these 20 items, they're not a contractor, they're an employee. And, what they were trying to do at the time was avoid paying their taxes. They thought because we didn't hold out their taxes, we'd be responsible for their federal income taxes. That's not the case. There's a 7.65% of the FICA that we would have been responsible for. But as we ferreted out the process and had documentation that's signed by them that said, I know I'm a contractor, I'm responsible for everything, it went away. But it was another one of those legal issues that we had to kind of persevere through. And then, like I said, from a scalable standpoint, we just kind of recalibrated. Here are the people we want to stick around. Some of the people we did not allow, we canceled their contracts and did not make them an employee. And then some of them quit, and then we added to it. And then it made it where, okay, now we've got a rhythm of here's your hours, here's the system. We put a CRM in place. At the time, we used Salesforce.com. And we really just went, overboard to go through and follow up. We put rules in place, such as if it's not logged in a CRM, it didn't happen. So we had protections for our sales employees that if they logged stuff in the CRM and they followed our protocol for follow-up, then they were protected. The deal wouldn't get stolen away from them. But if it's not logged in a CRM, it didn't happen. I don't care if you called them. I don't care if you got a sticky note or whatever. Those were some things that we put in place that practically, was applicable, and it really worked out phenomenally. And honestly, we went from I hired a couple of administrative people to take some of the load off of what I was doing. Then we hired a couple of salespeople. And then before I know it, I had some kind of an interview or some kind of a thing that I went to. And during the time, the lady that was talking to me said, hey, you should really apply for this thing called the Dallas 100. I'm like, what is that? She's like, well, it's the fastest growing companies in DFW. It's the SMU Cox School of Business, and you should apply. And I'm like, I don't know about all that. I mean, we're just a little company in McKinney doing what we do. And she's like, no, I'm serious. Like, it sounds like you've got pretty good growth. You'd probably make the list. I'm like, all right, that's fine. So I filled out a form. I sent it in. Now, that was about 3 years into it, and we'd already passed some of our pretty explosive growth. Actually, it was on the 4th year. And I was like, let me go from here. Well, I didn't even think about it again. I got a letter that says, hey, you're on the list, come to the event. So we're excited as a company. I can't remember exactly how many employees we had. It seems to me like it was probably, at that time, maybe 40 or 50 employees. And somebody just asked me, hey, Doug, where do you think we're going to place that tonight? And I'm like, man, I think we're going to be number 48. And I don't even know why that popped into my mind. I was like, just like randomly squirted out of my mouth. And then I felt crazy the rest of the day. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we're like number 100 or we're like number 99? Then I'm gonna look like an idiot because I popped off at 48 and I just randomly made something up. So anyway, we went through the day and got to the event, and I was sweating bullets until we got to number 48. Then at number 48, then they announced whoever, and then it wasn't us. And so I was like, all right, At least we're 48 or better. And so they kept doing the countdown, and we ultimately got to 28 as the 28th fastest growing privately held company in DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so then we applied for some other things the next year, and ultimately that's when we started our run on the Inc. 500, 5,000 list. So it was just kind of adding a couple people, kind of correcting our trajectory, adding a couple more people, and then going from there. My lights go off because I've got these lights if you're not moving, so let me move real quick.
No worries.
Yeah, the lights will come back on. We've got those.
There we go. We can see you again.
Absolutely. I'm not in the dark anymore.
Well, that is really incredible. I mean, just the fact that you're able to, and a couple of keys, for our listeners to take away. One is if you are using 1099 contractors, obviously we are not lawyers and we don't live in your state possibly, but you really want to make sure that you are following those guidelines. For me, I had about 40 plus employees that were working part-time for me. And, I really wanted to make them employees for a number of reasons, but it was basically, the legality of it is I was telling them where to work, what to wear, what to do, like you said, that list of things, you name one of those things and they're doing it, all of a sudden they're employees. So, it's going to cost you a little bit, but I think that culture you build as well, like you mentioned, they feel like they're part of something bigger, that you're building the team. It does get pretty exciting. So along that journey, obviously there had to be some pivotal points in scaling. Kind of give our listeners into some of the pivotal points where you kind of have those moments of like, okay, we need to do this to get to the next level. So I'm guessing when you started this out as a part-time thing, you never envisioned that you'd be, number 400 on the Inc. 5000 list.
No, not at all. I mean, it was not even a concept of mine. It wasn't a goal. It was what it was. Now, I would say that as an entrepreneur, and I think one of the blessings and the curses of entrepreneurs that have success are they kind of think they can do. I think they can do it. They can just jump out there, and make it happen. They'll build an airplane, while they're jumping off top of the building and put it together right before it takes off and crashes. So you feel like you can kind of do anything, and you kind of feel like you could do things better than pretty much anybody else. Now, the curse to that is that you get out there and it doesn't scale because you can't do everything. So that's what we started doing with segregation of duties and segregating and elevating. And so we would segregate pieces of it off like I used to when I first started. I did everything. I sold. I did marketing. I did the accounting. I mean, literally, I remember I used to do an Excel spreadsheet, and I had a customer that called me one day, and they were like, hey, I need to pay my bill. And they said whatever the name was. I was like, yeah, it's $178. I go, what, do you have it pulled up in front of you? And I'm like, no, I just sent them all out a couple of days ago, and I looked at every one of them, and I remember yours being $170. And they're like, what? So, that was kind of part of my rhythm. Well, we started offloading pieces to people that frankly were better at things, that could type faster, that were more efficient. And then every time we could segregate off a duty, that's what we did. So we'd segregate. And now, we've got, accounting department, we've got a research department, we've got a processing department. And then through that process, I mentioned we use Salesforce.com. Well, we got to the point where we're spending about $80,000 a year on Salesforce.com. It's a phenomenal tool, but I found that it's really, really good if you're really, really small or if you're really, really big. If you're in that kind of no man's land of the mid-sized business, it's really expensive for, per seat to use it. So what I did was I thought, I could put a little bit of money, maybe 20, 30 grand a year with that. I could bring a programmer in and write our own code. So I brought a programmer in and spent 7 years and a little bit over $1 million. But it got to the point where I was like, hey, hey, Brian, can we do this? He's like, yeah, man, you can do anything that you can dream up and write down for me. It's just time and money. That's it. Time and money. We can make it happen. If you can do it manually, I can do it automated. So we built a CRM from scratch. And it has automation of all types of things, click to call, click to leave messages, text messaging integration. I mean, it's got our accounting jobs are integrated into it. We spent about 7 years of programming. Everything was in my mind and in our chief research and processing people's minds to automation what we could, so that we put it in the system and it has if this, then this statement. So if it comes back this way, respond this way. If it comes back that way, respond that way. If it doesn't come back at all, respond this way. And it just kind of developed this whole process. And that was one of the other things from a scalability standpoint, that we put processes in place and automated as much as we possibly could. And that's from our follow-up procedures and all those kind of things with our customers. It just increased the customer service level that we had. And then it automated a lot of the processes that we were previously doing manually. Well done. I love it. I love automation. I love delegation, and really what you focused on of there's somebody out there better than this, better
to do this, whether they're quicker, faster, they like it more, whatever the case may be. Obviously, when anybody gets started, unless they have a lot of capital, you're going to do everything. But if you're ever going to scale, your time, your earning potential is limited by the number of hours you can work in a day if you're doing everything. But once you start delegating, I mean, it's the floodgates can open. Obviously, you're proof of that when you first get started. Nobody thinks of, unless they're, 1 in a million, they don't think we're going to make this list, or we're going to do this, or we're going to get to a couple hundred employees, because you can't see that far. Sometimes you can't see that far. But once you start delegating, I know for me, it was like the best thing that ever happened. Once I delegated and we had success, and I realized they actually like to do this better. And then they come up with better ideas of, did you know, doing it your way is great, but if we do it this way, it's even better. So with that being said, how many employees do you have now working with Repair My Credit?
So we're a little bit under 50 right now, and there's a myriad of reasons for that. But whenever you hit 50, we had gone up to about 110 at one point, and then a lot of that was administrative. And with the software investment, we didn't need quite as many people. But there's some unique things that happen whenever you get over 50 employees, or 50 and above. And so with government regulations and requirements and things like that. So I found personally that, this is my opinion, but unless you're going to have significantly more than 50 employees, then the 49th and the 50th and the 51st, there's probably somebody on the lower end of the totem pole that's probably not a great fit for you. You got to be very cognizant of what happens when those things happen. And unless you're probably going to have a couple hundred employees, it's a real, you get into this no man's land of things you have to follow procedurally that we just decided, we don't think that was a good fit for us, and we were kind of outside of our lane and our comfort zone. And one of the things for me, frankly, was when you start getting over 50 employees, you get where you don't know your employees as well. You can't say hi to them every day. You don't know what's going on with them. You don't know their spouses or kids. And that's been one of my strengths over the years, is really knowing people. And so that's what I like to do. And I used to think whenever I was a kid, I was like, I could care less. I'll do whatever. As long as it's legal, I don't care if I have fun or not. I just want to make as much money as I can. But then I realized, you know what? If you're not really having fun, what's the use? And, you start figuring out, well, you know what? If you've got talent and skill, you can apply that to other things. And so you don't want to do things that really aren't fun. And so I just found that I like that size of a group because I can keep my arms around it and it's comfortable for me. And it gets to be where it's kind of a lifestyle business. So do I want to scale it to get to 500 employees or 5,000 employees? Particularly not me. There will come a time where every season has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we're probably somewhere between the beginning and the end of the cycle of running this on a day-to-day basis. And so there will maybe be somebody that we exit at some point, and their dream might be to take it to 500 employees and take it to 500 million a year or whatever. That's just not kind of the dream that I have. So I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids that are adults now, and I've got a new grandbaby that's about 6 weeks old.
Nice.
And so
Congrats.
there's just, well, thank you. Yeah. So we're just looking at things from a little different perspective. My wife and I have been grinding it out for a little over 20 years. And so, it's a little different dynamic, and that's just not my background. I'm not a corporate guy. To be honest with you, that's a whole different world. MBA from Harvard or whatever. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. And so that's just not my strength. And I just don't want to do that. And honestly, I don't want to operate in a corporate environment. That's no fun to me. I mean, if I wanted to operate in a corporate environment, I'd go get a job, a corporate sales job or something. But I don't love the big corporate feel or environment. So for us, that's kind of our sweet spot. And we've just decided we're going to keep it under 50, barring, some kind of a epiphany. And we decided we want to do something significantly different.
That's great. No, the key there is you're building, this business to, you're using that to leverage, obviously you're leveraging technology to increase productivity. You're doing the work of, if you had this much productivity 20 years ago, you'd probably need 500 employees. And now you can do it with, mid 40 employees. But I think that the other key is you're using that business to build the life that you want, to build the life that you love. And it's not the other way around. And it really depends on everyone's goals out there. And with that, you also have a podcast out there, right?
We do, yeah. So we've got, and that's one of the other things too. So we've got a podcast and a traditional radio show that we do here in the Dallas market, and we brand it as Ambitious Radio, and you can check it out on ambitiousradio.com. And we do kind of same thing that you do conceptually. Obviously, that's how we met. You were on our show a while back, and we interview authors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and people that are just out there making it happen. And it's from all different ends of the spectrum. So I interviewed a guy today that runs a CrossFit gym in New York. And, it was an intriguing, he was kind of a referral to me. So it was an intriguing interview because I learned a lot about CrossFit and how it's a licensing play that I just thought CrossFit was like jujitsu or something. I just thought you CrossFit up on your wall and you're good to go, but it's not. It's actually a brand and you have to license that. But then last week we interviewed a guy that he's the CEO of the CRM system. It's a company called SwiftPage, but that act.com that you probably have heard of. 20, 30 years. So, and this guy, he's acquiring things and, doing $500 million a year in revenue. So it's every end of the spectrum. And that's what we do is just try to give practical advice, interview, get tips and tricks on how to grow your business and sustain it.
Awesome. And definitely attest to that. Doug is a great host. I was on his show and definitely check that out as well. So you got that going on. You got your family going on. You got the grandbaby. You got your business. What's a normal day like in the life of Doug Parker these days?
Yeah, so there's somewhere between enough and too much is definitely like kind of where I'm at, and I'm probably on the other side of too much right now. I'm literally grinding about probably 80 or 90 hours a week right now, and it's partially by choice, but I've got a new venture that I'm working on that's in the energy deregulation space, and so I'm going, like on Sunday, I'm going to Japan for 3 weeks because that energy market deregulated about less than a year ago. And so it's a kind of an explosive opportunity for residual-based type income. And so that's one of the projects I'm working on. And so I wake up just naturally about 5:30 in the morning. I typically get out of bed about 6:30, something like that, just depending on kind of what my daily rhythm is. As weird as it sounds, if I've got a late night scheduled, I'll force myself to lay in bed till 6:30 or 7. I'm not asleep anymore, but I'm just trying to rest because I know that if I get up at 5:30 and get going, then I'll crash, early that night. And sometimes I can't afford to do that. So, I'll get out and get going. I normally am in the office by really about 7 o'clock, something like that is kind of my normal time to get in the office. And then, I kind of have a daily rhythm. I'm a big fan of Outlook. It just works for me. I color code everything. I've got 6 different companies that I'm involved with. And so I color code everything in my Outlook to kind of see what's going on. And then the night before I go to bed, I just kind of look at my schedule for the next day and say, hey, what have I got going on tomorrow? And, interestingly enough, I forgot that your show, was a video show as well. And so typically I wear a suit and tie every day, but today I was in the office yesterday from 7 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. Ouch. I was back here this morning at 7 a.m. And then I forget what all my schedule looks like today. And then tomorrow I've got an appointment at like 6:30 in the morning. And then I've got to go out to East Texas, which for those of you that aren't from Texas, East Texas from where I'm at is about 2.5 hours. And then it's still another hour to the border. So Texas is huge. I'm kind of, the center of North Texas. But anyway, and then I won't be home tomorrow till 11 o'clock. So my day tomorrow will be from 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. of activities. And so, my daily grind is pretty significant, but what I try to do is get up, get in the office. I kind of come in. I've got not really quiet time necessarily, but I go through, look at my schedule. I've kind of got I have to have a daily prayer list of what I'm going to be praying about because I'm so like all over the place that if I don't have a list of exactly what I'm praying for on today, then I'll sidetrack on something else. So I just have a list of everything every 7 days a week of what I'm going to be praying for the day. And I kind of go through that for a couple minutes and then start cleaning everything up, cleaning out my emails, blowing that stuff out, seeing, what else needs to be done. And then it's time blocking. And then it's just attacking things based upon scheduling what's going on. And so over the years, it's great to kind of quote unquote be that serial entrepreneur. One of the things that I found is that you can get really like bogged down. I mentioned in the pre-show conversation we had that I've got 4 monitors on my desk. And so that's great that you got 4 monitors and you got stuff going on. The problem is you're like, you're looking around and then you sidetrack and then all of a sudden you're not focused on anything. And then it's like, what the heck happened? 3 hours have gone by today and I haven't got squat accomplished. So I kind of, and it's probably from the interviews that I've done, I just kind of picked up that time blocking methodology, and I just block out. So now what I do is I focus on the different businesses, try to for 3 and 4 hour increments. And so if it's a credit business, I've got relationships with referral partners. And what I'll do is I'll block out 4 hours. And then for the next 4 hours, unless the building's on fire, don't knock on my door, don't talk to me, don't do nothing. And I'm not doing anything that's not something on fire other than focus on those referral partners. And so I'll have a rhythm of emails, text, and phone calls where, I get in this rhythm of I'm going to find an article that I really like, I want to share with them. But I'm sharing the same article with every one of them and having an organic conversation with them. And if I don't get a hold of them, I may email it to them, but it's just because I can rapid fire it, because now that's my rhythm. And it's like anything else. Once you get momentum built up, then it's a lot easier to plow through them. And then I'll be on to the next. Okay, I've gotten that knocked out for today. Now it's what's my next most important thing. And really that segregating duties and delegating, those kind of things, it really boils down to, for me, is just finding out, where can I go make it rain at? What am I best? What's the highest and best use of my time? And then everything else, I try to either just mark it off my schedule and not do it anymore by just saying, I'm not doing that stuff anymore. Whatever it is, it may be something I just don't like to do. Or I'll delegate to somebody else that's better at it than me. Or one of the problems that I have is sometimes I don't mind sweeping the floors. I don't mind doing monotonous stuff, whatever needs to be done. But sometimes I'll take those things and then I'm asking myself, I don't have time to get the other stuff done. And I can make it rain doing some, calling referral partners. And meanwhile, I'm screwing around for an hour or so cleaning something up. And it's a waste of my time. It's actually not serving my company well. It's not serving my employees well. Like, I can't do that. I got to hire somebody to do that or have somebody else do this particular job.
Awesome. And I think that last statement is huge because, as a business owner, you can do everything. So it's really, I picked up the same thing for interviewing other entrepreneurs, that idea of time blocking, setting aside an hour or 30 minutes to do each thing. And I have it right here on my desk and I highlight it off when I'm done. For anybody out there, you can see it. That's really the key to success when you're running multiple businesses or you're just running one business. In order to get everything done in a systematic way, setting aside time to do everything is huge. And then, like you said, if your time is better well spent making a couple $100 an hour doing this, then I'll pay somebody $20 to $30 an hour to do X, Y, and Z, because the differential there is huge. Which it's hard for an entrepreneur to swallow that. Like, why would I pay somebody $20 to do this when I can do it myself? Well, because then you can take that time and go make a lot more money and go impact a lot more people and probably have more fun focusing on your strengths. So with that being said, you are working like a madman. What is your ideal freedom? Do you feel like, that's what makes you, and that's where you're having fun at? Because everybody's ideal view of freedom is different. That's really my ideal view of freedom myself, is being able to grow multiple businesses, being able to talk to other people, being able to help others, on a day-to-day basis. How do you avoid burnout when you're doing all that?
It's kind of crazy, man. I've even when I was a kid, literally when I was in high school, I worked 40 hours a week on top of my high school schedule. And I like to work. I enjoy it. I never like, oh man, I got to go to work this Monday. I mean, I never have that feeling. I never do. So I enjoy it. Really, from a burnout standpoint, the only time I've really, I think, ever experienced burnout or like a true burned out feeling was, I had a time in my financial services business where we had an issue. It was a government affairs issue. And man, I spent $1.8 million and 5.5 years messing with it. And that kind of burned me out, not with the customer interaction, not with the referral partners. It was just, that was no fun. And, if I had to do over again, I'd have done a lot of things differently during that time. But, that's the only time I got into that type of a feeling. And, I think you just got to work your way through it. This is kind of like my playground. This is where I go to relax. This is where I make it happen. This is where I'm comfortable. And so for me, I just block it out. And so it don't matter what's going on personally. Everybody has their issues, right? Everybody's got chaos. It's all relative to their lifestyle or whatever. But trust me, I've had plenty of stuff that's gone on. But when I come to work, it's game time. And it may be because it comes naturally to me, maybe because I'm pretty decent at it or whatever, but it just works for me. And so I enjoy it. Now, will I ever retire? Like if somebody gave me a crazy amount of money, I mean, there's, with the exception of a few things, pretty much everything's for sale because pretty much everything you bought, right? So, if somebody offered me stupid money for the company, yeah, it's no problem. I mean, I'm not like married to it. I don't have a physical attraction to it. I can handle it. I could walk away. But what would I do? Honestly, the radio show, I'd like to potentially maybe syndicate that and then do a 5-day-a-week show instead of a 1-day-a-week show, because I could interview people and have these conversations. Of course, my lights go out again. I'm being still too much. I'm probably have to fix that. I don't do a whole lot of these TV or video interviews, but really, I enjoy helping people. I enjoy growing the business. I think it'll always be a rhythm of activity, and it's a productive activity. So whether it's kind of being semi-retired and then choosing maybe be a turnaround artist to go into companies and be there intensely for 2 or 3 months and then take off a couple months and do some traveling. That might be something that would be interesting. But for the foreseeable future, I mean, honestly, I just see continuing to grow the businesses, and 80, 90 hours a week, that's too much. For me, a nice rhythm is probably more like about 60. That's a good fit for me. Honestly, if I'm not in the office for at least 10 hours a day, I'm like, what the heck do people do with the rest of their time? I mean, I have no idea. But I guess I saw some other day where people watch like 60 hours a week of TV or some crazy number like that. I don't know how they even possibly get there, but maybe that's what they're blowing their time on, but not me.
That makes two of us, and I think it is. When I talk to people about kind of that subject in general, there's 168 hours in a week. How are you going to spend them? You're going to sleep for 40 to 50 hours. That leaves a lot of time on the table. Especially if you're not watching TV, which we cut the cord a while ago. I probably turn the TV on once every couple of weeks if there's a sporting event on. But other than that, once we cut the cord, I found myself being a lot more productive. So I think the key takeaway for anybody out there, though, is find what you love to do and go do it. And if you're not happy, then stop doing it and go do something else. If you enjoy building businesses and you want to continue to do that, or if you just want to build your one, scale it up, sell it, and go retire, whatever it is, I think the key is to have that end goal and then work your way backwards. So with that being said, Doug, I know you got a lot of stuff going on. So do our listeners. So every good thing does have to come to an end. After all, we are all about freedom on the show, so we don't want to take up too much more of anybody's time out there, including yours. But before we go, it is time for our rapid recommendations for all things related to systems, automation, and of course, freedom. So I've got 6 topics here. I'm going to give you one at a time. You're going to give our listeners one thing to inspire them or to go check out when the show is over. So we're going to start with one book that you recommend. So the one book I recommend is See at the Top. Zig Ziglar. That's going to be backwards there, I guess, on the way it's displaying. But See at the Top. It's an oldie but a goodie. Love it. Love Zig Ziglar. All the quotes and all the thoughts that he's had will definitely impact any business owner out there. What about one quote that you like to live by? I ran across this the other day, and it's kind of a combination of things, but it's that your excuses only sound good to you. And so I've said it a couple times. I've searched it. I haven't found that it's a quote of anybody else's, but the reality is it really is the truth. I mean, when you're making something up, it sounds good coming out of your mouth, but the people that are hearing it, they don't care. They don't care what your situation is. Really, your excuses only sound good to you. That is totally true. Well said. If you can't find who coined that phrase, we're going to give it to Doug Parker. We're going to put it up online. What about one tool that you like to use on a regular basis? I mentioned the Outlook. I really use that tool in a huge way. And I use other software tools, with Adobe and different things. But really, that's kind of my go-to. And it maybe is really simple, but it syncs everything. It makes it easier when I look at it on my phone. And it really is a powerful tool. I would second that. It's one of those things I guess it's been around long enough that people kind of overlook it, but I have everything in that calendar, syncs to my phone, syncs to my Gmail, and it makes my life a lot easier. So then I don't have to remember anything because it's all there. What about one podcast that you like to listen to? Well, I love me some Ambitious Radio, but I have Of course, Ambitious Radio is top of the list. Now, really, one of my favorite ones to listen to is Tim Ferriss. Tim really brings great guests and digs in and gets great information from them. So I tune into that one regularly. Also, Andy Stanley's got one on leadership. He's a Christian. He's a pastor actually in Atlanta, but he really brings some great leadership tools that are applicable to anything. And it's only, I think, once a month. It's about a 30-minute show. So it's not a lot to listen to, but it's great information. Awesome. And everything we do mention here, including these podcasts, we'll definitely link it up on the show notes at our website, paulmaskill.com. Obviously, you're a busy guy. Are there any communities you like to hang out in, whether it's a local community or an online community? Where are your people at when you want to go kind of get away and hang out for a little bit?
So physically, I do a lot at church. And so, like I'm present there every Sunday. That's actually a good rhythm for my family because we have as much as we work, we go to brunch basically every Sunday, and then we're at church after that. So it gives us maybe 3 or 4 hours of family time. So that's a one that we do a lot. My wife and I try to have a date night every week. And the last rhythm of this work has been a little bit more difficult. And then like online, Facebook is kind of the place that I hang out. It seems to be the easiest. You have to figure out all these different things and look at a bunch of people's pictures all the time. So Facebook seems to kind of be the place where I hang out the most.
Nice. And I'm picking up a recurring theme of rhythm. And I think finding what your rhythm is going to be key to anybody's success out there. Because if your businesses and your personal life are definitely going to intertwine when you own your own business. So making sure you have that rhythm is huge. So before we do go, one parting piece of advice for any business owner out there who is stuck, burned out, or just trying to get over the hump.
Yeah, I would say it's real simple, and it's nothing I've made up. I've heard it from 1,000 different leaders, but basically you go find somebody that's killing it in the business, they're just making it happen. It doesn't matter if they're young, old, wherever, and you go find them and you try to find a way to serve them. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I literally told a guy about a month ago that is a kind of a big dog in this deregulation industry, energy deregulation. And I said, hey, can I go? He's going to Japan as well. I was like, hey, man, can I go to Japan with you? Man, I'll carry your bags. I'll polish your shoes. I'll do whatever you need. And I'll zip my lips. I mean, I ain't going to say nothing. I just want to be in your meetings and absorb what you're doing. This is a guy that's making probably $500,000 to $800,000 a month in this industry. And so I'm like, man, I'll be your runner boy. I'll be the errand boy, whatever you need, because I'm that serious about it. And, if you can go find somebody to serve and just humbly serve them, whatever your big deal background is, none of that matters. You go find them and you serve them. And I promise you'll get a lot of information that you couldn't pay or go have a training or do, something like that. So that's what I would recommend is go find somebody that's killing it and then see if you can serve them in some way.
I love it. I love focusing on serving first before anything else. Don't put yourself first. And if any successful business owner out there, they don't have an ego when it comes to anything like that. It doesn't matter what you've done before. Like you said, if you got to carry that guy's bag, shine his shoes, get his breakfast, whatever it is, to get in that room. What we talked about before, Zig Ziglar, one of his favorite quotes of mine is, help enough people get to where they want to go, and you'll get exactly what you're looking for as well. And no matter where you're at, how much success you have, don't let that get, to your head. So thank you so much, Doug, for taking the time out of your day to impart some of your knowledge, wisdom, and enthusiasm to our community. Hopefully this helps everyone out there get one step closer to achieving ultimate freedom in their business and in life. Before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those things, ambitiousradio.com, or just Doug Parker, search me and I'll pop up on any of those areas.
That is a fact. He is everywhere. He's got 6 businesses going on. Ambitiousradio.com. Definitely subscribe to that podcast. And then if you want to find him on Facebook or Twitter, very easy to do. So thanks again, Doug. Everybody else out there, stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive into another fantastic interview with Jeff McManus from Growing Weeders into Leaders. And if you like what you're hearing, we'd always appreciate a friendly review, subscribe, and share with your friends to get them the newest podcast as well. So don't forget, you can join our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com. If you just go to that link, it'll forward you on over to Facebook, where we can continue the conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs who are putting the plans in place to work less, make more, while increasing the value of their business and achieving ultimate freedom along the way. So until next time, keep rocking, trust the process, and talk to you guys soon. Thanks, Doug.
I appreciate it, man. Have a great one. Good to see you.
You too.